For StateCollege.com, I'm Laura Nichols outside the Centre County Courthouse with Vice President for Communications for the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, Kristen Hauser, who's also a State College native. Kristen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So first, what have you been doing at the Centre County Courthouse all week during the Sandusky trial?
We've really been here working with the press to give context to victim testimony, to let people know that many of the things the victims are talking about during the trial are very normal for sexual assault survivors to experience or display. We're certainly here to support the victims, to offer resources to people in Pennsylvania that need assistance of their own for themselves or for their family members, and to talk about prevention and what this case means to spur communities on to start taking action and hopefully have far many fewer missed opportunities than we've seen in this case. Now,
a lot of these cases are reporting that the abuse has been reported much later in life.
Right.
Are there a lot of, is that a common theme in reporting sexual abuse?
Very much so. It's probably one of the most frequently asked questions I've answered this week. Most victims never report to anyone at all, and those who do often wait, many of them for years. We need to keep in mind that in this case, these are all young men who were sexually abused, according to them, in their very early adolescence, just before adolescence. This is a time where you're just becoming aware of human sexuality. Homophobic barbs are used on a regular basis to bully each other in junior high school. And that makes this very confusing when the perpetrator is an older man, the same gender. That's an additional barrier that really does make people feel like it's not going to be safe for me to talk about what happened. I'm going to be ridiculed, I'm going to be blamed, I'm going to be accused of things that aren't true about myself. So definitely a silencing factor.
Have you found that you've been clearing up certain misconceptions this week? Are there any recurring themes that people have been asking you about?
Yes, in addition to the delayed reporting, I think there's this idea that if you're going to report a sexual assault, that you're going to report every little detail the very first time. Also not true. What we've heard in this case are that on the first asking or two, people may deny it, then they may allege things that maybe were just the beginning stages, but they don't share until much later into the disclosure process the real full story of what happened. That is totally textbook for working with victims of sexual assault. They don't want to tell you the whole thing. They don't want to admit the whole thing to themselves. Another thing is continuing relationships with the offenders. People seem to think, gosh, if that happened to me, I would cut off all communication. But we have to keep in mind there was a lot of time and energy put into cultivating complex relationships with these young men, and the letters that were released to the public yesterday, they demonstrate, it's very sickening to me, the level of emotional manipulation that's evident in those letters. So again, you need to look through that through the eyes of a 12-year-old boy or a teenager who's perhaps having a family environment for the first time in a while, a role model in a while, gifts, other things that are really good and pleasurable, and there's this bad stuff happening. Kids just want the bad stuff to stop, and it's normal to want to keep those familial relationships after the abuse has stopped. So we see that as totally normal. All of those things were spun as abnormal in yesterday's closing arguments.
And given everything you've seen and heard this week, paired with your education, what do you hope to see out of this verdict?
Gosh. Well, first of all, I certainly hope we get a guilty verdict. I cannot imagine a case with more evidence, more corroborated stories, eyewitnesses, and you name it, this case has it. So I'm hopeful that there will be a conviction. But beyond that, I really hope that the awareness that has come, particularly here in Centre County, we've had a coalition forum of youth-serving organizations, private citizens, a university, people really coming together to say, you know, this whole community needs to learn this issue, and we need to learn how to do better, and they're investing time to get that training and do it. So we're very hopeful that that kind of momentum keeps up, not only here, but across the state.
Wonderful. Kristen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
With Kristen Hauser for StateCollege.com, I'm Laura Nichols.